I know, and all my fix-it mode and all that stuff. The tools help hugely with that. I am able to hear the stuff, release it, ask to be shown, ask that he be shown, do a gentle art of blessing, and I usually go to bed. My anxiety level, knock on wood, has been wonderfully low, and that's the tools. But the fatigue has been, I know, it's great. The fatigue has been a challenge, but I noticed something today, so I'm happy to be on the show today. I dragged myself to the refugee center because we have a summer session going, and I'm in charge of the snacks. And I have one restless, underemployed grandson up the street, and I said, Charlie, why don't you and I go in together? And he said, well, I don't need the community service hours. I've already earned them. And I said, okay, but come anyway. And if you're thinking about your resume, you may want to work with these people during the summer because he hasn't got a job. It's been too many interruptions, other grandparents flying him to Seattle, a trip with his parents. So it's been very choppy. So he said he'd come, and he dragged himself. And it was such a gorgeous time because one of his old teachers from grade school is a volunteer there. And I had brought in all the food the day before. So we just sailed in and set out the food, and I taught him how to make coffee in this monster machine they have, and counting all the people, putting out the stuff, cutting up the apples. And then there was this immigrant refugee woman from the Dominican Republic who didn't know any English. And she was assigned to the kitchen with us because we didn't know what to do with her. She couldn't teach English, but she was supposed to earn community service hours at her high school. So I installed Google Translate, and we had conversations. And we learned about her family up here, and her mother's going to have a baby, and she seemed to pick up and be happier. And Charles was very engaged. He's good that way. And he came out of there saying, that was such a beautiful experience. I realized these people have been through so much. I have no idea. You know, from Ukraine,
awesome.
There's a brand new, from Ukraine. And I got home and I thought, wait a minute, I wasn't tired at all the whole time. What gives? So I have to figure out, why am I
you changed your focus?
I know, and what am I doing here? And then I said to Tim Bingham, I said, do you think we have a demon in the house? And I even asked if the person downstairs might be part of the energy drain. He said, no, it's not that. We don't know what's going on, and I can report later whether the energy goes again. It's been just up and down, but, you know, I'm smelling a huge rat because I certainly forgot about it today and had plenty of energy. So
nice
that's
catch.
the report.
Nice catch.
Tim Hayes' hi, Michael. Tim Hayes' show just now was absolutely a winner radio show. He was reading Anthony DeMello, and it was all about the world just as it is and accepting it just as it is. Something toward the end particularly, he said, we'll never understand why there's so much suffering, so much enmity. He said, but we don't have to fuss about it. I'm putting it very poorly, but I felt as if a little latch opened up and I could breathe. I think I've been just doing the blame game again, saying the world is suffering, the planet's broken, and my grandsons are struggling, and therefore I have to go to bed, so, and then not sleep. So anyway, I don't know where to take this, but inquiry going on all fronts. Okay, what?
That's awesome. Well, my offering would be, first of all, several things from what you've said, but just on the last point, I don't think we need to embrace the world as it is. I don't think that's correct. I think what we need to do is embrace what the world brings up in us. Again, we're back to, you see, the world's the problem. So seeing as how the world's the problem, if I can just embrace the world, then everything will be okay. And then earlier, your language was, and yeah, if I could just figure this out. Dear heart, you are never going to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
That is the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind, if I could just figure this out. And DeMello, when he says embrace what's going on in the world, hasn't figured it out. What needs to be embraced is what comes up in us, what it is that is about pain or depression or sadness or grief that our mind tells us is about what's happening in the world. And therefore, we just need to embrace what's happening in the world. When we come to the point where we've embraced the pain and trauma in ourselves, then like you did at the refugee center, you just function as love. And there's the power supply that your physiology needs.
Now,
there's a great
idea.
line in the Course in Miracles that says, you can't be tired. You can't be tired. But the load of carrying this trauma and this pain that we project onto the world is a load nobody can carry. I mean, it literally is what kills us.
Yeah.
So what I hear, once again, is you stepped into a healing crisis, and you were able to step outside of it. So what you know from your experience today at the refugee center is it's clearly not physical. It's got nothing to do with your physiology. You can stop trying to figure that out. It's expressing in your physiology, but clearly it's not caused by your physiology. Otherwise, when you went to the refugee center, your physiology would keep doing what it's doing, because it doesn't change because you go to a different place. It changes when you come to a different mind, though.
Yeah. Well, Michael, what do you say about, remember the title of Matt Kahn's book, Whatever Arises, Love That.
Big mistake.
Isn't that what...
Terrible mistake.
What?
Terrible mistake. Well,
if I said whatever arises,
remember,
allow that?
I think that's a whole lot closer.
You're
whatever
blowing
arises,
smoke out of both nostrils.
Whatever arises, choose to be the presence of love with it. Not love it. Again, we're back to projection. Oh, see, the world's the problem. All I have to do is love the world. You can't love the world. You can't love anybody. You either function as love, like you did at the refugee center. Notice the difference between the day before, when you were all exhausted and such, what you were functioning as, and what you were functioning as at the refugee center. One day you were functioning as, I don't know what, but it wasn't love. And the next day, here you are at the refugee center with the young men that you want to inspire, and love is present the whole time, and you don't have one iota of tiredness.
Yeah. Michael, what did you say? Whatever arises, blank. Wasn't allowed.
Be the presence of love with it. Be the presence of love with it. And so whatever happens in the world, ultimately, if I'm functioning as love, I'll just embrace it. I'll just extend the hem of my garment, the presence of my love, to it. The only thing that inhibits me from extending the presence of love, the hem of my garment, to whatever atrocities are happening in the world, is that I have a matching atrocity inside of me that's in my genes, that's in my generations, it's in my physiology, in my experience, and I haven't embraced and forgiven it yet. And I'll keep trying to figure it out, and I'll pound my head against the wall forever trying to figure it out. But you don't have to figure it out. You already know. Am I functioning as love? Or am I not? And the mind has a billion ways to turn it around and make it look like it's the world. So embrace what comes up in me. And, you gave us a few clues yesterday about what was going on. And if we go back to the point where you were functioning in a pretty balanced way, you had energy, you were rocking, can you pinpoint when the shift took place that left you with this exhaustion? Is it 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago?
About 2 months ago. I'll have to think about that. Nothing comes to mind.
But pinpoint the time and space where this exhaustion moved in.
Okay.
Do you have a pretty good idea of it?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Well, let's breathe a little bit and see if we can find it. I mean, did you call the doctor? Did you sit in tears? What was happening the day that this new level of exhaustion showed up?
I don't remember anything dramatic. I certainly haven't been crying about it or anything.
I'm not suggesting anything dramatic. I'm just asking you to establish in your mind when this level of exhaustion showed up. And the reason I'm saying that is it's important to be able to look at. So my next question would be, let's say you determine it was, 2 weeks ago Thursday. So look at your calendar from 2 weeks ago Wednesday and what was going on. Oh, that was when I got back from the wedding and the kids were doing well and everybody's rocking. And man, I was just like flying high. My daughter got married, and my grandson that I expected all kinds of problems with was just there and delightful and got some healing and saw what it was like to be embraced by his family. And is that what was going on? Because everything you're telling me, again, if this was a physical disease, you'd have been as exhausted at the refugee center as you were the day before. But it's not a physical disease, and it's not a physical problem. But my suspicion would be, if you looked at just before, if you can pinpoint when this happened, just before, you hit a whole new level of vitality. And when you hit a whole new level of vitality, what happens? There's a danger in each new depth of the experience of the presence of love. Pained perception, exhaustion being one of them, comes from pained content. There's no other source of it. It isn't sourced in your physiology. It's expressed in your physiology, but it isn't sourced in your physiology. So the solution lies not in embracing the world, but noticing what the world brings up in you and awakening to the work that you need to do as a result of this powerful new opening experience.
Well, I don't think I can tell you anything, but it was around the time that I got COVID, although the COVID itself was like a cold. It was just so minor that I almost didn't take a test. And then I took it, and it was so immediately positive. And so I'm going through my calendar. Even as you're talking, I'm just poking the days. I've made it through November, but I don't want to take the radio show time for that. But I will certainly have a look to see if anything pops out. Because I can think of this is and that's, but usually these are just the things that have been on my mind for years, like Jacob and his struggles and various things happening in the family, which I would be blaming, except I know better, and I can really let them go. I'll be on the phone with Jacob right before bed, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll fall right to sleep. Then I wake up in the middle of the night, but I don't think that's doing it. It's something else. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking, and this is just my intuitive hit, and it may be totally out in left field, that the new level of aliveness that you experienced, the excitement of watching Jacob interact with his mom after all that trauma, and the possibility and the presence of the healing that happened, gave you a new peak experience. And each new level of vitality, each peak experience results in a healing crisis, results in, okay, so now the next layer needs to come up. And that requires a new level of commitment to do your work, because the danger, the deep, slippery trap that comes with each new mountaintop experience is that I slide back into the abyss and forget about it. And sometimes people slide back into the abyss of their own perceptual minds after having done their work, and they get lost there for decades. because the next layer that comes up holds so much that they don't want to face. And of course, every time, everyone who experiences that deep presence of love, and you described how the wedding went, it seemed like you personally, not the external, but what happened for you personally was a new presence of being in your physiology. And of course, when we have that, everybody wants to have those moments to last forever. But few, because the blocks to maintaining it are so painful to face, few will ever achieve the goal of working through those things, of living in that space of continuous, connected, active, present love. And you might sit down and write yourself an essay about everything that was, let me think of the word, everything that was sweet and awesome about the experience at the refugee center with your nephew or your grandson. Write it all out. I mean, every sensation, everything, and tap into the actuality of it. And this experience you just had may contribute to taking still another step deeper into the energetic patterns from genetic or early life traumas that have to be faced, processed through, and literally removed from your structure. And here's life just fulfilling its purpose. We don't need to embrace it. It's going to kick us right square in the limitation no matter what we do. I mean, it's brilliant. It's genius when you think about the fact that this whole energy system is structured so that if we're holding anything that's killing us, life's going to come and show it to us, going to kick us right there. And what the non-being mind will do is it'll make up a construct about, yep, well, there it is. See, it's what's happening in the world again. There goes the world again, doing it to me again. As opposed to, oh, here I am with this coming up in me that I don't want to embrace, that I don't want to face, that I don't want to deal with. And, you know that it's yours because you're the one that's feeling it. And that game of denial, blame, and victimhood, that one world religion, I mean, every one of us by the age of 4, you and me included, were card-carrying members of that religion by the time we were 4. It's been an old habit. And it's not an easy habit to break, to move out of the blame game, which means victimhood, and come back to ownership. That's what needs to be embraced, not the world. And the world's custom designed by the Creator at every instant to show us the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. Once you renounce that religion of blame, ownership of what's coming up, conversation about others comes to an end and it becomes ownership of what's surfacing. And then the next level of the removal process begins. And of course, that removal process is forgiveness. And everything unlike the new desired state must be uprooted, faced, and forgiven. And, there's no choice about what will begin to surface. A new level of vitality automatically kicks the process off. And that's what I'm asking you to see if you can pinpoint, which would be just like, oftentimes it's just the night before. You go to bed higher than a kite. Man, this is just awesome. I love life. And then in the morning, it's like, did anybody get the number of that damn Mack truck that went through my room during the night because I'm lower than a snake's belly?
I know.
And
Golub says that in his article. He says, watch out. You go high and have a great time, whether on LSD or not, he adds. But you're in for it. Watch out. It's going to take a nosedive.
The Creator.
Basically,
well, it isn't really going to take a nosedive. It's just going to show you what you've been holding on to.
Mm-hmm.
The new level of vitality creates the opening that allows whatever needs to be resonated. And each new peak experience opens the next healing crisis, the next level of work. And yeah, would I ever like to have those sensations permanently?
Mm.
So again, everything that is unlike the new desired states got to be uprooted. And again, I'm so delighted that you came on to share with what happened with the visit to the refugee center with your grandson, because now you know without a shadow of a doubt that there's nothing physical about it.
Yeah, where did this vitality come from? Charlie asked me an interesting question on the way home. He's very good socially, but he says it takes an effort, because he says, I'm an introvert and I've got OCD, and he does, driving his father nuts. That's another whole story. But on the way home, he said, don't you get exhausted being so engaged with the people who are there? And how do you do it? And I said, it comes very naturally. I feel as if they draw out a tremendous amount of energy from me. And he said, how does that happen? And I said, well, I think for me, I don't know any of them, except I know they've been through a lot. And we've been instructed not to say much or ask them too many questions. It's so traumatic for them to go there. We're just supposed to be in the moment and enjoy their company and teach them a few words maybe, or feed them, or whatever we do. They're all like children in a way. And I said, well, my garbage has nothing to resonate with. There's nobody out there who's going to trigger any garbage. And I'm not triggering any of their garbage. They're so glad to be here. They feel safer. And I said, it's so simple that we get to see each other as children, really. We get to play is what it turns out to be. And they don't have words, and so they'll throw the banana peel in the trash instead of the compost, and I'll dig it out, and we smile at each other, and I show them where. And there's just a sense of tremendous appreciation of each other. And these big guys, will come in from Sudan who are like giants, some of them, one of them in particular, and he says, thank you. And, it's so simple. And we get to have 2 hours or 2.5 hours of simple. And I say, I feel so enlivened by that. My garbage has gone somewhere else to sit. It's not around, and theirs isn't either. It's like taking a huge break from junk. So you talk about matching bags of garbage. We're not aware of each other's garbage at all.
There's such a different resonance. Yeah.
They're so appreciative.
So notice one of the bags of garbage that your grandson has brought into is that he drives his father nuts.
I know.
He didn't drive his father nuts. His father is nuts, and his son brings it up.
True.
Remember our conversation about children? Children are like having your unconscious mind out in True Living Color and Dolby Sound. Everything you've never dealt with, they're going to bring up. And he's doing that for his dad. It's what his dad needs to heal. And when they can get on a healing path, and, when you can explain to him, maybe just that simple principle, and then how can you go to the refugee center and be the presence of love? Because when you have the presence of love flowing through your structure, instead of doing this garbage stuff we do with each other, then you're enlivened by that interaction. You're enlivened by every scintilla of energy that has to flow through you to support those people.
Mm.
And we're killed by that energy being withheld when we held things that we've refused to forgive in ourselves. It's exhausting. So what's the next layer that you need to embrace in yourself? And most often when these toxic energies start to move, most people, it's so deeply hidden, they're like, when it opens, it's like, I had no idea I was carrying that around in me.
Yeah.
So the to be concise, a new level of vitality arouses because of the empowerment needed to get there, a new depth of unresolved dynamics in the mind and body that are loosed in the process. And since vitality moves everything that would inhibit it, the toxic load can no longer be kept in hiding. And that's what we tend to want to go and shut down. I don't want to deal with that. So the unconscious dynamics. Yeah. The unconscious dynamics, sooner or later, when they're activated, they're going to work their way into awareness. And sadly, it's not in a true and honest form. It's in the form of projection. Oh, yeah, look at what the world did to me now, but it's okay. I'll embrace the world. No, don't embrace the world. Embrace what comes up in you. Don't love the world. Be love in the presence of what the world delivers to you.
That's
and
true.
You heal.
Well, without going into any details, I got to make a list because the snakes are coming out of the pit. My lovely
That's
snake.
exactly what has to happen. That is wonderful. I'm excited for you. Because
Thank you,
on the
Michael.
other side of it is a whole other layer of aliveness and joy. And on the other side of it all is eternal life, literal, physical, eternal life. Because these are the things that kill us. Remember the scriptures that talked about, with man death began. We made it up. The pursuit of this work is to be in the state of willingness to face everything in each of us that has killed every member of our family system that went before us.
Mm-hmm.
The willingness to embrace all of that.
Okay, one thing I would love to ask you about, because it's very strong. We have this person living with us who seems, if I were to draw an emotional picture of him, I would draw a picture of a man with no clothes on, totally exposed, vulnerable, passive, helpless, and somehow what comes up in me is I want to strangle him for being vulnerable. And I know this is just a huge amount of garbage. And one reason we're going on is because I feel as if he's a walking life lesson. And selfishly, I think it's not time for him to leave. It would be too easy to have him leave.
So what do you suppose happens to your physiology when there is so much rage moving that you can use the words, I want to strangle him? What do you suppose that, when it's moving in you, does in your physiology?
Not very good things.
Not good things. And notice you could leave the house for a few hours and be in the total presence of love and joy and physical vitality. So maybe there's one of your clues right there.
Well, there's an element there, too, of, he's trying to be invisible. He doesn't want to be invited to leave. He wants to stay as long as he can, and he will stay as long as we allow. And that, to me, I think of as, a kind of dishonesty. And so I'm angry about the dishonesty. We don't have.
So you're angry about something outside. You're angry about something outside of you.
No, I'm angry because
really?
What
that's
is
interesting.
in me? No, shut up, Michael. I'm saying something. I'm saying that.
I heard you loud and clear.
You didn't hear the rest.
I'm angry about that. His vulnerability.
That's in me. No, that's me. It's got to be my stuff. I'm getting what you're saying.
You need to go back and listen to this recording again. You need to go back and listen again and listen to your words.
Well, I'm telling you what the outer impulse is, and then I'm saying, this is mine.
Yeah.
How am I dishonest? How am I sneaky? How am I an opportunist? How have I taken advantage of others? I am asking myself those questions. You're not being nice to me, Michael. I'm trying to do what you've been teaching.
So, do you remember what it felt like when your power person said all those things to you and about you?
I don't remember my power person ever saying I was dishonest or sneaky. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember being, too loud and fighting with my sister and causing a ruckus, and we got switched for that, but I don't remember being accused of those things.
So remember the life lesson that Shakespeare gave us. He said, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below.
I remember that, yeah.
So as you re-listen to this section of the recording, just mark down and make note of your words. And there's a reason why you don't remember it. It's called the unconscious.
Okay.
And it's too much to handle.
I'm not going to want to listen to this, but I will.
Good. Good. I know you're committed enough to do it. Nobody, when you come face to face with the core of what you need to deal with, nobody wants to be with that. Much as we clamor and go, yay, 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 I want to look at that. And there's a reason why these kinds of dynamics go on generation after generation after generation. And the family system produces a round of offspring that are all addicted to something. Because somebody isn't dealing with something and it's getting passed on. So instead of figuring it out, that's when it's time to just be there and embrace what's coming up in the breath and the presence of love and let yourself be with it.
Michael?
Yes, where do you go?
I just was looking up for the notes and everything. Can I read the whole paragraph that you were talking about in the Course in Miracles about being tired?
Yes, please.
And there might be more
You're
to
You're
add.
so on it.
So it's chapter 3, and it's called The Innocent Perception. When you feel tired, it is because you have judged yourself as capable of being tired. When you laugh at someone, it's because you have judged him as unworthy. When you laugh at yourself, you must laugh at others, if only because you cannot tolerate the idea of being more unworthy than they are. All this makes you feel tired because it is essentially disheartening. You are not really capable of being tired, but you are very capable of wearying yourself. The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. It is curious that an ability so debilitating could be so deeply cherished. Yet, if you wish to be the author of reality, you will insist on holding on to judgment. You will also regard judgment with fear, believing that it will someday be used against you. This belief can exist only to the extent that you believe in the efficacy of judgment as a weapon of defense for your own authority.
Jeannie, would you back up about 3 sentences and do them again?
Sure. So you are not really capable of being tired, but you are very capable of wearying yourself. The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. It is curious that an ability so debilitating would be so deeply cherished. Yet, if you wish to be the author of reality, you will insist on holding on to judgment. You will also regard judgment with fear, believing that it will someday be used against you. This belief can exist only to the extent that you believe in the efficacy of judgment as a weapon of defense for your own authority.
God, that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
So I don't know if perhaps the judgment towards your house guest is somehow resonating also in judgment towards yourself, and therefore creating the wearying of yourself.
How about reading the last sentence of what you just read again, Jeannie?
The
last
sentence
is, yeah.
The last sentence is, this belief can exist only to the extent that you believe in the efficacy of judgment as a weapon of defense for your own authority.
Totally right.
Breathe on that one. Breathe on that one. And what's the alternative? Vulnerability.
Defenselessness came to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And notice the thing you pegged, your greatest desire to strangle somebody is this man in his vulnerability.
Absolutely. It's really amazing.
So it opens up a space in me where I want to cry.
It does seem totally shocking that I would feel hatred toward a person who is vulnerable. That vulnerable. Nowhere to turn, really. And no resources within himself to find a place to turn to. Not very attractive.
So do you see the goals you need to work with on your next series of worksheets?
Some of them,
your goal
I don't
for
think
Michael,
I see them all.
Your goal for Michael,
Oh, yeah.
Your goal for yourself. Well, I would start with the goal for Michael to be strong, the goal for Michael to have resources, the goal for Michael to be self-responsible. And then once you've done those worksheets around Michael, then do those same goals around yourself. And maybe there'll be someone else that will come up that those same goals will apply to. It might be mom, it might be dad, it might be big sister, it might be Tim, it might be your son, it might be your grandsons. If you look at Jacob, I think Jacob could be a good corollary to Michael. Only Jacob's taking the path of fighting and raging.
Yeah, and he also says, there's no way I can support myself when I get out of school. And you guys are stingy because you're not going to support me and you're going to make me homeless. And Catherine, my daughter, has said, Mom, do not mention the man who lives in your basement as a person who is in any way like Jacob. I don't want him to model himself or have you thinking about that. And, of course, I already am.
And so is Mom.
Yeah. He keeps sending me videos of young people saying, do you know that it costs us costs so much to rent, and meanwhile the minimum wage is as low as it was in 1956 or whatever it was. There's no way. And Jacob says, why should I spend 100 hours a week making hamburgers and not being able to do what I love to do in order to have a roof over my head that's barely going to cover? And I say, I hear you. It is an awful problem. Let's work on it. What?
We definitely need to reorder our society, don't we?
Oh, we sure do.
I mean, when you think in today's age, we still have at least 2 states where the minimum wage is $5.15 an hour. And we have another 20 states, almost all of them belonging to one party, including the 2 that are $5.15 an hour, that are $7.25 an hour.
Yeah, that's it. And I'd say I agree with you.
The society.
I know. So his mom and I know I'm getting off the track, but his mom and I talk about, not being codependent, not rescuing him. And I'm saying, how do we draw any line like that now? When that kid comes out of school, is there no way I'm going to let him be homeless? I just won't. And she says, Mom, you have to work with me. And I said, I'm working with you. And I'm saying, Kathis, really picture it. What are you going to do if he has nowhere to go? And she said, well, I'm as weak as you are, Mom. I'm going to let him come here and live in our garage. It's a big, nice garage, and he can make it into a studio, and he could do his music and get a little job. And that's, but I'm not telling him that. And I'm thinking, maybe we should. Maybe we should. He's suffering from such anxiety about his future. Why not say, hey, if you can do it on your, what?
Wait a minute, Grandma. He's not suffering from anxiety about his future. He's suffering from the unresolved family anxiety. It's not about his future. It's not about the outside. The principle's the same for him.
Well,
and Mom is suffering from the anxiety that she carries, and Grandma's suffering from the anxiety that she carries. And as the family system starts to face that anxiety and diffuse it, then everybody's going to be freed of it in the family system.
I don't know how to get from there to the practical situation of Jacob graduating from school and having nothing and nowhere to go. I realize the anxiety is in us, but you said yourself the whole system is a wreck.
Oh, it is. It's a product of what we've created, yes. And the reordering of it starts with each individual doing their work until we reach critical mass and making for a shift.
In the meantime, I would like to reassure Jacob that he'll be okay. And I've said this much without being specific. I say, Jacob, we will work with you if you'll work with us. And I don't even know what that looks like, but don't fight us. Join us. Let's be together on this. And he'll breathe and say, okay, but then he gets his dukes up again.
Well, that's the next layer of his work. Once again, it might be appropriate to point out that he does really well until something violates a goal that he holds.
Yeah.
And if he can understand that and begin to recognize, if I hold this goal, I go into anxiety, and I can cancel this goal and diffuse my anxiety.
Yeah.
And a whole new creativity opens. I mean, I've watched that young man. I mean, I don't know what age he was, 14. He's creating awesome music videos at 14. His capability is awesome.
And that's what he should be doing, and that's what he should do. Yeah.
And the thing that inhibits him is that unresolved anxiety. And he projects it into whatever, flipping hamburgers, wherever it is, but he's got to come back to the point sooner or later, just like Grandma comes back to the point of recognizing it's when I load a goal in my mind that all this surfaces, and it's mine, and I need to work through it.
I totally agree with you. He's not going to use the tools the way I would recommend. He'll understand about the goal thing, but then he'll fight and say, but I have to be not on the street in a year and a half.
Right.
So
what do you think is going to put you on the street? What do you think is going to put you on the street? Having anxiety or not? Where do you have the best chance of being somewhere other than on the street? So make part of your process the resolving of that anxiety. Remember, Job gave us a lesson. That which I feared most has come upon me. You're a creator's son. Yeah. You can go create it. You can create yourself being on the street and being in all that drama. Or you can face it and start to diffuse it. In fact, I might even be able to come up with a couple of investors that might even invest in a studio to help you get your music rocking. But you're going to have to play a part. You're not going to have to keep pushing it away and kicking everybody that wants to be there to support you because you have rage and anxiety in you. Sooner or later, you got to grow up and put on your big boy pants and recognize this is yours, Jacob. Just like I, Orb, am recognizing that what's mine is mine. And Mom's going to have to at some point recognize that what's hers is hers, or cooperatively, we'll all create the exact opposite of what it is that our goals are about, because what's resonating us when we put those goals in is the exact opposite, the generational patterns of failure and pain and trauma. And yes, he has a genetic heritage of rage and abuse. That's going to have to be faced and dealt with. It's not easy to bring cooperation and support into a world that you're continuously beating up on. And sooner or later, he's got to get that he's continuously beating up on it. However, he gets that lesson. Elsewise, as he continuously beats up on it, it's going to beat up on him.
Yeah.
With man, death began. And that's what ultimately destroys us. So the number one piece of work for you is to take these next layers, process through, and be the space, hold the space, have the conversation for what needs to work out next. You know, you've got one of them through the gate pretty effectively. Took some time, but the gate's open, wider than it was ever open.
Yeah.
You know, the gate was totally, completely blocked and shut down for Luke.
Yeah.
But he's on the other side of it now.
Working hard to stay there, too. He told me he goes to an AA meeting every day. First thing in the morning, he goes for a run or goes to the gym. And I said, do you need to do that on this particular day that's so busy? And he said, I have to. And I said, why? And he said, because
it's his process.
I need to take the edge off my anxiety and my depression, which is very much there. Taking a drink would help a lot in the moment, but I'm not going to do that anymore. So I'm feeling it all. I'm feeling it all. And he said, I'm really working the program and staying above water, but it's hard work. And I said, amen, I know it.
It is. I have a friend who's in AA, and I was just talking to him the other day. We were doing some processing, and his question was that he had asked his sponsor, how long do I have to come to these damned AA meetings?
Yeah,
and the sponsor said, until you want to.
Oh my God. That's a fabulous answer. Until you want to.
And that's what it takes. Yeah. Until that part of you that is kicking and screaming, traumatized from generations and generations and generations of unresolved trauma. I mean, who can you think of in your bloodline from the point where you entered the world? Who can you point to that could have even started to have this conversation with you?
Wow, that's true. Nobody.
So you're the early adopter. You're opening this for the whole family system.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
And you got one alcoholic young man through the gate, committed to his work, even when you invite him to do it the easy way. Oh, well, we won't do the program today. He knows better. He's got it.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Well, I've got to stay vital. I want to live 10 more years to make sure they're all through the gate.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I support you going well beyond the 10. I'd invite you to consider how in 2022 you are just rocking and alive and embracing these young ones that just don't have a clue and lifting them up with your vitality and your aliveness.
Well, that's been my purpose. Purpose went from being a successful composer to this, is opening the gate for the boys or anybody else.
Now you're doing your real purpose.
And you can do it anywhere.
It is. And you can do it anywhere. And the guise of anything or nothing, you can do it.
Yep.
You can do it in the guise of someone volunteering at the refugee center. You can do it in the guise of a concerned grandmother at a wedding. Yeah. And we have seen nothing compared to what those folks have been through. Nothing.
True. Totally true.
But that doesn't mean that our ancestors haven't seen it and lived it, and it lives in us until we face it and move through it. Because when you're the early adopter, you're dealing literally in your genes with everything that every person in that refugee center has had done to them. Your family, my family, all of our family systems have been there.
Wow. Well,
that's
like
Francis Fenelon's quote.
Yeah.
Say again?
I was going to tell you a little story about something that happened today in the refugee center.
Please do.
An Arabic-speaking mother in full regalia with her hijab and everything came in with a 12-year-old daughter who was in total panic and clung to her mother. And we have a musician, a guitar player in there, a young woman who taught at my grandson's school. Not young, actually. She came out anyway, and she started regaling the girl right while she was clinging to her mother. She went outside the children's center part of it. Started singing to her and showing her how to strum the strings, and the girl reached over and started strumming the strings, and gradually they eased the girl into the kids section, and the kids sat there learning how to play a ukulele. I just thought that was just gorgeous, and the mother came out with her camera and was taking pictures. Like, this was such an amazing thing for them. Yeah.
In the guise of a music teacher.
Yeah, that's it.
Pretty awesome that a mother who had to escape her country because of the atrocities of the insanity in the world, but is still able to do that for her daughter. Wow.
Amazing.
There's so many creative ways to fulfill our purpose.
That's true. And it makes life much simpler to have that as a purpose. You can let go of all the other stuff.
Yeah. You remember the line in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? To a complex mind, truth is complex. To a simplified mind, truth is simple.
Yeah.
All we have to do is face what's in us and finish with it. So awesome piece of work, young lady.
In process, I wrote down what you suggested for wake-up sheets. Those are good. So thanks.
It'll be interesting to hear the upshot of doing the round with each of attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, yesterday Tim was having an issue, and I said, how about we do one of the wake-up sheets? And he said, I'll do it tomorrow. So we have a date.
Cool.
Talk about denial and avoidance.
Tomorrow, I'll do my work tomorrow.
Yep.
And
right.
I'm really delighted to hear that Luke is smart enough not to put off to tomorrow what he knows he needs to do today to keep his program up. That's courage.
Yeah.
That's smart. And he's got to have a good sponsor. He's got a good sponsor. That's awesome.
I guess it does. You know what he and his brother did? I know we're going to get cut off. Max and he drove all the way from Jacksonville to Asbury Park, New Jersey, to go to a band concert last night. And they do the kind of music that those two brothers are doing. And they're going to another one tonight. And they were going to drive all the way here afterwards, 2 hours. We said, we're putting you up in a hotel. You're going to go to bed right after the concert. You're going to sleep in. You're going to eat and then go back to the concert. And we did a Zoom visit. I said, you can Zoom with us. We'll visit that
nice.
way. And we had...
So that's awesome.
The boys isn't that the cutest thing? They're very good friends, the youngest and the oldest. And the middle one is mad because he's not invited to any of that stuff yet. But anyway, thanks for listening to my little family sagas. Boy, it never gets dull.
Well,
all right.
You know, we're all in this together, and the gift you give with the search that you're doing and the work that you're doing is a gift to everybody in the community that listens. And who knows, as the Course says, the millions yet unborn that will be touched by it. So thank
amen.
you.
That would be nice. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jeannie.
All right, young lady. You have a blessed one. Lots of love. We appreciate you a lot.